But let me go back to the actual physicalness of the beach show moment and why it's so important. Because I believe that we have the answers to a lot of our uncertainties all around us all the time. We just don't get to them because we don't sit down and be quiet enough. Because we don't sit down in the silence and sit in the silence. No podcast, no music, no nothing. Sit with the silence. Because I believe there's so much power in that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Boost. Today, I am joined by Adam Roach. Adam, when we talked before the recording, you used a phrase, and that phrase stuck with me. You said, to be misunderstood is to be understood. Let's start there.
Okay. Where should we start? Where do you want me to take this? I mean, I can take this so many different directions.
So when you say that, what does it mean for you?
Well, I mean, again, I can take it in the context of where I've heard it from, and I'm a very spiritual guy. So we can take it from that standpoint. And this was just taught to me many, many years ago. If you look at Jesus, he was a very misunderstood person. And yet that's what he was attempting to go for, was literally to pay attention, to have people pay attention. Because here's the thing. As we build stuff in this world now, I don't believe we're in an information age anymore. We are truly in an implementation age. Everything is implementation. I mean, information is everywhere. It is so available. It's almost overly available if you think about it. Google is historic. Google is like old school now. If you're not using a chat bot for something, you're behind the times. You really are behind the times. I got a guy that rents an office from me right now that is using Claude Code, and he's programming something that was a mechanism that someone was trying to sell him. And he's like, I don't need that. I'll just go build my own. And so he went and built his own. So here's the crazy part is, to be misunderstood is to be understood, as in the context of the world that we live in right now. Your job out there, so I'm a coach, right? So I help coaches build their business. It's okay for me to be misunderstood in that space, because it is what I call the premise, right? I believe that there's 3 P's that you have to have in this space of serving, in coaching, whatever you want to call it. The second P is premise. Premise is what? It's my belief. It's my worldly view. It is my understanding of said context, right? Of said information. So if we go back to Jesus, Jesus had his premise. He had his belief. And he knew what he was doing in that moment of time. And people didn't necessarily understand, but they wanted to listen. It's the same thing we're doing right now. We have a blueprint. Sure, everyone has a blueprint. I believe in the blueprint of what we have built in our 4 phases serves coaches, just aligns with what they're looking to accomplish. And so we could be misunderstood in that space until we are fully understood that, oh, those 4 phases can help me get out of this container of success that I'm not being called into anymore. Let me check it out. Let me understand. So that's really what the origin of what that was from, and I live by it.
Shifting gears a bit, when we talked before, you described a version of yourself running those early companies. You had that win at all costs mindset.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Because I'm pretty sure it didn't start in business.
No, that's an easy answer. My father was an Olympic swim coach. But even before my father was his father, and then his father. And so I think 3 generations removed from my dad were farmers in Indiana. And I got to experience my grandfather, never got to experience my great-grandfather, working hard on the farm. And hard work was what brought payoff, right? Hard work, manual labor, up before the sun came up, down before the sun went down. And as cliche and movie-oriented as it sounds, I mean, that was my grandfather Roach, right? 2,000 plus acres, beans and corn. That's Indiana for you, and chickens and cows. That's what I knew, right? And so I got to watch my grandfather in the hard work space, manual labor. And then I got to see my father, who was on the farm but off the farm, raised on Main Street, if you will, and became a coach in his own right, but became a coach in a very niche specific space, and that was in the swimming space, right? He was a specialist in that space. And he specialized in training athletes to prepare them for the Olympic trials and then take them to the Olympics. And so my father had great notoriety. He was on the cover of magazines, he was in the Hall of Fame, he was all these things. So where did I get it from? Now, there is a little caveat to this because I got it from catching, right? I believe things are caught, not taught, and we catch things. And so as I was catching what my father was doing, I thought that had to be me too. I really did. And I have now since learned through having multiple coaches my entire life, multiple business coaches, multiple relationship coaches, multiple fitness and nutrition. I mean, you name it, I've had of coach, right? Of said coach. And I still have 4 right now as we speak today. But here's what I learned. I learned that that version of myself was not the true version of myself because I went through with a coach what he called the pose exercise, POSE, the pose. We all have a pose. And that pose is created through a true, what do you want to call it, equation. And I had no idea, right? So this is a fun, I'll share briefly this abbreviated story of this. But he says it starts, everyone has this, it starts with a wound, right? A true wound. And so he goes in and he starts asking me about my father because I loved my father. I still love him. I mean, he's deceased now, but I love my father. And he says, let me ask you a question. Was your father active or a passive dad? I said, I don't think I know the difference. He says, was he around or was he not around? And if he was around, was he the kind of dad that sat you down and said, son, this is what I expect from you? Or was he a passive dad and he just basically taught you things based on how he acted? So that's good. I said, I think it was the latter. He was passive, if that's the way you want to define it. They said, great. He said, where did your dad, where did he get his fulfillment from? Was it from church? Was it from the family? Was it from external? And I thought, well, we had family dinners, but he was gone a lot of the time. And he didn't really go to church with us that often. But his office sure was filled with magazine covers and trophies and awards and pictures with other people. So I think he got his fulfillment from his family, but boy, he got it from external. He says, okay. He said, so that you need to pay attention to because the wound plus the L. So W plus L, L is lie. Lie is what we create in ourselves from the wound because lie then goes V. So W plus L plus V. V stands for vow, VOW. And what is the vow? The vow is the thing that you will do to overcome or hide or mask the lie. So what was my vow? I'll always win. What was my vow? I'll always succeed. What was my vow? I will do whatever it takes to have success. Equals your pose, POSE. My pose was that I was a performance dude, right? I would perform. I was performance driven. I was success oriented. Now, that's not wrong, okay? But here's what we have to understand is your pose could be inauthentic. Your pose could be created based on an area where you think you need to be. And it wasn't until that same coach coached me up on what he called the masculine heart. And masculine's not sex-based. It's not male or female. It's the masculine heart. He said, Adam, a masculine heart has 3 categories. An adventure, a warrior, and a lover. I was like, oh, cool. He said, did you hear me say success? I said, not really. He says, great. He says, now, success can live in the adventure side. Success can live in the warrior side and even in the lover side. But he says, here's what you have to pay attention to. Are you having significance? Or are you having only success? He says, because success is finite. Significance can last forever, even after you're gone, and that's called legacy. And he says, you can't have legacy without the root word, which is legs. And so he says, the legacy is who you have helped other people become after you're gone, and they still feel that. I thought, whoa. He says that is where your true self is, if that's the lane you're being called to. And I was totally being called to that. And so I know that's a long winded answer, but I came from a success path, very successful in the financial space, very successful, exited 4 companies. It was fantastic. The ex wife got a lot of that money. And now this significance path is how do we serve coaches all around the country and then all around the world? And we've been blessed now to do that on 4 different continents.
Yes. So I didn't hear you share this. Can you remember the first time you felt like winning was just the price of admission?
It's happened 3 times, right? It's happened 3 times. First time, I was a collegiate tennis player. I attempted to play professional tennis, found out real quick that I was an American, not a European, and was getting my butt kicked all the time. Though I got into the tennis business and I gave myself 10 years to own a tennis club. I got it done in 4 years and it was great. But then about year 9, year 8 or 9, there was something off. Something was misaligned and I didn't know what it was. And I was actually pushing it away. I was like, who wouldn't want to be in Beverly Hills? Who wouldn't want to be teaching Tom Hanks and Courtney Cox and Val Kilmer tennis, right? Who wouldn't want to be doing that? So from the outside looking in, life was great. But from the inside looking out, something felt off. Then it happened again in the real estate investing space, right? I was a flipper and I was a wholesaler. And that was a short-lived time period because the market beat me up. But at the same time, I learned through it. And then I got into the real estate brokerage ownership standpoint and owned 3 of them. And the same thing happened was I felt like the container is what I call it, that I was in, which is conditioning, right? Conditioning means that we feel we are supposed to be in that lane because of the season of life that we're in. I felt uncertainty. I didn't know what it was, but there was an uncertain feeling around it, and I had to go create clarity for it. I had to go create clarity of what that uncertainty was. And each time that clarity brought a different vehicle, right? It brought a different vehicle. And the last piece of that was I needed to step into a space of ownership. I needed to step into a space of not physical ownership, but a stance, right? What was the stance that I was willing to take that surpassed success? And now that's what's brought me to this today.
In the previous discussion, you brought up legacy. And a lot of people know legacy as, like you said, the things you leave behind, the what will people say when you're gone?
Yep.
I come from a position that legacy happens in the little daily decisions every moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about this. You talked about the 3 layers, the tennis coach, the real estate investment, the brokerage. You had the franchises, you had the agents, you had market share. From outside, as you said, you were exactly what that identity was supposed to create.
That's right. Oh, I forgot. I had a software business in there too. That was massively successful. Yes.
But what was it costing you that nobody else could see?
First of all, if this is a video podcast, they'll see I have no hair. So that's first. No, I'm joking. What was it costing me? Great question. Because looking back on it, I think it's an easy answer. And that was the character, right? It was costing my character. Here's what I mean by that. When I owned my brokerages, I was a recruiter, right? I was a recruiter of people to bring in. The way I looked at it was the more people we had, the more revenue opportunities we had. Same thing with my software company. The more users we had, the more revenue opportunity we had. And I was known as a recruiter. And while that wasn't wrong, what it was costing me was I was so focused on the numbers. I was so focused on the growth aspect that I was missing empathy, right? That I was missing the relationship, that I was missing things that mattered more. You know, I had a real big business owner mentor one time say, Adam, you know, the cool thing, you know how you can define success is when you're walking through your own company and people don't know who you are. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I, on the flip side, could walk through my own company and not know who everybody was. And I didn't like that, right? That was out of alignment with who I really was because number one, I love people. And number two, I love serving people. But yet all I was focused on was warm body, warm body, warm body, warm body. Get them in the door, get them into production, get them in the door, get them into production, get them into the software business and have them have success. But if I
Yeah,
walked into a room of 1,000 people, I wouldn't know their names.
right. It sounds like you were operating in that kind of that automaton, right? Just a machine, just boop, 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 boop,
Yeah.
boop, 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 boop.
Yep.
All right. So you didn't mention it, but you told me before there was a divorce in there and you lost like 3/4 of what you built.
That's right, I did.
What was happening inside your identity at that point?
Well, that's easy. That is a case where my focus was on the success of business, not the success of family. And there's other factors that can go into the reason why I got divorced, though at the end of the day, to take my software business as an example, I'm on the East Coast of the US and my software developers and partner was on the West Coast. And so that was 3 hours behind us. So at 9 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock, and those guys are still working. So I'm still working too. At 12 o'clock Eastern time, it's 9 o'clock Pacific time, and I'm still working because these were big businesses that we were building. And it did. It cost me a relationship. It cost me connection. It cost me focus. And I say focus because I lost focus, right? I lost focus on what commitment I had made under God. And it was not repairable, right? It was not repairable. So yeah, all that success as it relates to financial, yeah, lost the majority of it.
Right. Kind of top of the mountain, down in the gully kind of moment
Well,
sounds
what's
like.
it's again,
Which isn't necessarily a negative thing because I
no, it's
feel
mm-hmm.
those valleys tend to be where we see the most growth. We don't grow
It
on the peak.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it's what's as easily given can be as easily taken away, right? And I do believe, I'm a firm believer that those wildernesses, if you will, are for a reason. And that reason is, in my spiritual walk, is to bring me closer to God, right? It is to bring me and stop being so self reliant and know that my relationship with God is first and foremost, right? But I was idolizing success. I was idolizing money. I was idolizing that notoriety. And hey, it, to each their own. But for me, it was misaligned. I was misaligned. And I was not necessarily being taught a lesson, but I was just having my eyes opened that you can
Right.
have success. You can
Yeah, I
have
think
success.
that, and that's the key, right? It's not that you can't have the success
Sure.
and the full bank account and the
Yep.
house, and as you said, it's very personal. Does it, what you're doing and the path you're on, is it aligned
Mm-hmm.
with your personal values, your purpose that you've uncovered?
Right.
Because I don't believe in, not like finding your keys. You don't go out looking and find your purpose. You
Right.
uncover it as you
Yep.
go through this journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to what you called the beach chair moment.
Mm.
Your
Okay.
father had passed. You went to
Mhm.
Charleston. You
Yep.
prayed, journaled,
Yep.
cried.
Sure.
You came back and shocked 750 agents. Walk us through that.
So let me back up. So after my father had passed, he passed from Parkinson's related issues. And I spoke at the funeral, spoke the eulogy. And what the pivotal moment was, again, this was a season of success for me. And as I watched my father die in his 60s, he was in his 60s. He passed from, as I said, Parkinson's related issues, but he only found out because he was training for an Ironman. And that was my dad. He was training for an Ironman. His times were getting slower. He calls me up one day and he says, "Hey, my times are getting slower." I was like, "Dad, you're getting older." He's like, "No, no, something's off." He's a very time-oriented man. I mean, with swimming, I mean, it's by the second they're that close,
Mhm.
right? tenth of a second. So he goes to the doctor, and the doctor has him walk on a treadmill, run on a treadmill or something like that. He says, yeah, this is easy. Did some blood work, came back, and he said, your left foot is dragging because you have Parkinson's. He's like, oh, okay. He says, Parkinson's kill you? And he says, no. He says, but complications from it can. Okay, fine. Fast forward 7 years later, and he's gone. So I'm speaking the eulogy, and I'm looking out over the audience, 400 or 500 people. And I see former athletes. I see peers who are his peer coaches. I see parents, right? And these were people that hadn't been in my dad's coaching periphery for probably 25 years, right? And I don't know, give or take some time there. And I saw what John Maxwell had been teaching me. Success is finite. Significance is infinite. And these people had come and they were sharing with me stories, legacy-based stories that to this day that they had carried with them, right? And they were using in their world. There was a man who brought with him a tape recorder, old school tape recorder with a cassette tape that he put it in and pushed it down and pushed play. And it was my father's voice. This swimmer was a breaststroker. So his head would go up and head would go down. Head would go up, head would go down. But he would hear my dad say, go, go, go. And it was a cadence, right? And if he heard my dad say go and it was faster, he knew his head was supposed to come up faster, right? So there was a real process to this. And the guy used it to this day in his own coaching world, right? So the funeral's over and I come back to Charleston and I need some time. I want some time to myself. So I go to the beach. And again, mind you, 3 franchises that are massively successful, a software business that is running, ex-wife payments that are easily being made right now at $18,000 a month, right? And success was happening. It felt good, but something was calling me outside of that. So I sat on the beach chair, took my Bible with me, took my journal with me, as you mentioned, took some sunscreen for my bald head, took some water with me, and nothing else. No music, no nothing. And I just sat there and I prayed and I journaled and I cried and I just kept drinking water and I just kept asking, just tell me where to go. Tell me what to do. And I kept hearing over and over and over, surround yourself with better people. Surround yourself with better people. And I didn't know what that meant. And these businesses that I had bought, I had inherited investor partners. So I didn't bring them with me. They were already there. And so I took that. I kept hearing, surround yourself with better people. So I took it to my pastor and I said, hey, I keep hearing this. And you told me that if I think I'm having a conversation with God to lean it up on scripture. So what are you hearing? He goes, that's easy. And I keep it right here. Proverbs 13:20. And that's walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. I thought, uh-oh. Are the people that I'm in business with my wise? And that's wise is W-I-S-E, right? Are they the wise that I'm supposed to be walking with? And I instantly knew that was a no. I instantly knew, right? Because I felt something was off and I just couldn't identify it. And before that beach chair moment, I couldn't identify it. But post beach chair moment, I could. But let me go back to the actual physicalness of the beach chair moment and why it's so important. Because I believe that we have the answers to a lot of our uncertainties all around us all the time. We just don't get to them because we don't sit down and be quiet enough. Because we don't sit down in the silence and sit in the silence. No podcast, no music, no nothing. Sit with the silence. Because I believe there's so much power in that. I'm a go, 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 go guy, right? I love to go. I love to be on the go. But after my father passed, I told my father that there was one thing in life that I would beat him in. It wasn't going to be magazine covers. It wasn't going to be Hall of Fames. I was going to beat him in the age category, that I was going to outlive him by at least 40-fold. I wanted to die at the age of 103, God willing. And so my doctor, who I then hired, he did blood work and he's like, hey man, your cortisol level is through the roof. Okay, now this is post-beach chair moment. And I'm going to get back to that in a second. And he says, here's what I want you to do. We're going to lower that, but we're going to work on your parasympathetic nervous system. I was like, I have no idea what that is. What is that? So he explained it to me. And he says, I want you to go for a walk. I said, a walk? Why would I go for a walk? He says, yeah, I want you to go for a walk. I said, when? He goes, anytime into the day, but just go for a walk. He says, I want level 2 cardio. I said, what is level 2 cardio? Can I go for a jog? He says, no, we're not going to go for a jog. You're going to walk. Level 2 cardio is where you can talk and walk at the same time without being out of breath. Okay, great. So I begrudgingly did that. But what I realized was, this is again post beach chair moment, that I was like, uh-oh, that was the doctor's way of telling me you need to have more beach chair moments. And that is when you get quiet. That's when you have silence. So every day, that's 6 years removed now. Every day I go on a 30-minute walk. No podcasts, no music. It's just me, 5 a.m., going for a walk. I listen for certain things. I listen for 10 things, and then I pray. And I pray out loud. And that's where I get to have my inner time. But let's go back to the beach chair moment. When I heard that, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm, my pastor said, have you ever considered selling your businesses? I said, no. He said, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you probably should pay attention. So I did. I prayed on it for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I went into my investor meeting. I backed them up back to back to back the exact same day. And I said, guys, today's easy conversation. I've surrendered to something that is calling me. And the simple action item is either I'm buying you all out or you're buying me out. And I'm not going to decide. You're going to decide. And yes, I know I own the majority of these companies, but that's okay because I'm surrendering to finding the wise that I'm supposed to walk with. And no offense, it's just not you. And they were all taken aback. 3 meetings back to back to back, just like that. I was scared to death, but I had surrendered to what I was supposed to be doing. And I did. And they all came back and said, hey, no problem. We'll buy you out. We knew what the process was. I had great exits. And that's what led me to this freedom to build what I was supposed to build. And now here we are. And I love it. So that's the beach chair moment. I believe everybody should have a daily beach chair moment, or if not, at least a weekly beach chair moment to get and sit in the quiet.
Absolutely. I was just teaching on this on a LinkedIn Live, that pause and quiet. Because if you're going through your day just nonstop from one thing to the next, it never gets quiet enough
ever
to hear what you need to hear.
Yeah, so
right.
True. And the pause is real.
You used Proverbs. I think it was Elijah. He looked for God in the fire. He looked for God in the storm. And where was it? The wisdom was in the silence.
That's right.
In a soft,
it really is.
quiet voice.
Yes.
And what I caught from your share there, Adam, is that it's outside of ourselves. Like when we surrender to something outside of ourselves, everything shifts. And on that topic of surrender, you mentioned it. You said to grow, you have to shed. And shedding is different than deciding. You can leave a container. You can decide to talk to your investors and say, hey, there's a buyout happening. You're buying me, I'm buying you. I'm out of this container one way or another.
Yeah.
But that alone, you can still carry that with you, right? You can take that same thing. I think actually your path illustrates that. You changed containers, but you carried things with you along the way. So on the shedding, what actually came off and what surprised you when it shed and you saw what was underneath?
But that goes back to identity, right? And this is a really funny, and it's a great part for this. I have here in front of me. This is, again, if we're visual, this is from 1996, right? So the question is, what did you shed? It took a long time for me to shed what I'm getting ready to share because this is 30 years ago. And this is from my college tennis coach. And he had me write out all of the strokes, if you will, in tennis. Serve, volley, ground strokes, footwork, mental. And overall, right? Overall, it said, okay, what are your strengths? Here's the strengths. What are your weaknesses? My weaknesses, here's what I said, 1996. My weaknesses are pretty minimal. And I read that to my wife, and she was like, in 1996, you still had an ego. I was like, I think that's where it started. So what did I shed? I shed a big portion of my ego. right? I shed a big portion of needing to be seen. I shed a big portion of this chasing success mechanism and aligning with what is the acronym for ego, edging God out. I mean, I was so self-reliant back then. Again, not that this is needs to be a God-oriented podcast, but for me, it was what I was missing. I was missing that relationship. And so I was shedding that self-reliance. I was shedding that ego side of me that I now, as we have built this coaching community, my team still gets really mad at me for doing this. And that's okay because I'm staying with my walk with the wise and become wise approach. I still do introductory and sometimes deep dive calls with every single coach that comes into our community. Why? Because I will never be the one that walks through my office, virtual because we're virtual, and doesn't know the names of people in my world. In the past, I didn't care about that, right? And who did I care about? Myself. Now, I know significance. When you have it, success follows. Just because you're having success doesn't mean you're being significant. And the neat part about that is I go back to my tennis days, my college tennis days. I don't remember any of that. Not because it was 30 years ago, but there was no significance there. It was just very success oriented, which led me all the way up to 2019, which is when I exited everything and went on this significance journey. So shedding of my own self, massive ego.
Well, and I picked that up when you shared the story at your father's funeral, the pre-breach chair moment. And in his death, you learned a lesson that you didn't catch while he was alive. And what I heard was what you just said, that the significance, we can call it significant, I might say impact, but it was about relationships. And as you said, it started with your primary relationship, because when that's off, none of the other ones work.
Yep, it's all off. Yep, it's totally off. And
Right?
now
When
being married again, oh, that next to my
different.
relationship with God, that's number two. Yep, that's number two. And we said it to the kids too. It goes God, husband and wife, kids, in that order.
Right. That's
In that
another
order.
one where people tend to get
And then
things out of order.
work relationships is last in my category, right? And so what's really fun is we've got, I don't know how many coaches in the community, but we have a great deal of coaches. We've been blessed to have many coaches in the community, and I don't get a single text message on help, right? They know to lean into the community. And that's the neat part. Even though I know them all by names, even though I could all reach out to all of them, they know that they are fourth on my totem pole when it comes to relationships. I love them. I love them dearly. And they're still fourth on my totem pole.
But isn't that what true community is? You don't have a leader of the community
Yes.
where everybody has to go to that leader.
Right.
A
Yes.
real community is everybody working together.
Yep.
The more seasoned members can guide the newer members.
Yeah. And that's our vision statement. Our vision statement inside of the community is to empower coaches. Didn't say Adam, didn't say my team. Coaches empowering each other. Empower coaches to change and serve 100 million people, not 100 million coaches. It's for the coaches to go out and change and serve all those people through what we call our real coach method. And the neat part about that is that is the job now of the coaches who don't work for me. They are just community members to go out and build these businesses that can be in that same breath very focused not on success but on significance, and it works.
Right. All right. So, uh-oh.
Oh, my camera just shut off. Sorry about that. There we go.
Technology.
Technology, gotta love it.
I was a guest on another show today, and the host accidentally, instead of scheduling it for 12 p.m. Eastern, scheduled it for midnight
Oh. Mm.
yesterday and actually opened like a 12-hour live event. And this morning
Oh
it
my
was like
goodness.
panic. Oh my gosh, like
Ugh.
the technology. Ah,
Yeah.
but that's authenticity, which is perfect because during our call, you talked to me about how you had been the inauthentic one.
Yes.
And when you were that version of yourself, you didn't sleep very well at night.
Mhm.
Today, you sleep like a baby. And I want to go there because that really landed for me. What did that actually look like being the authentic one in practice?
At first, it felt unnatural. It felt too vulnerable, right? It felt, it was a, I had to learn it. But here's the crazy part is it wasn't a learned skill. It was a skill that had been masked. It was a skill that had been covered up. It was a skill that had always been there, but had been just totally covered up to create this persona of a individual who performs, right? A performance driven dude. And when the authenticness showed up, my relationship with my wife got better. My relationship with my kids got better. My relationship with our community members, my team members, and all of that had set in a little bit before we got to the size that we are. Man, my relationship with my mother, my sister, my family was I was able to be more present and engaged and be curious with my questions versus either closed-ended questions or making them about me. There was a real awakening there where it just turned into, I want more of that. Give me more of that. And the more I got of it, the easier it got. The more I got of it, the calmer I became. My cortisol levels are at an all-time low right now. And my doctor, Dr. Ryan, is like, keep doing it. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And it could be the fact that I also get to look at amazing water views all day, every day, and the calmingness of water too. That's a whole nother podcast. But at the same time, it's just, yeah. Chill is a silly little word, but I'll use that. It just feels relaxed and chilled.
And I get that because I think a lot of that higher cortisol and the stress is from you're trying to hold up the walls and the masks. One of my recent guests said he realized he was standing in the room holding the crumbling walls up.
So good.
And when he realized, like, I just need to let it go, just let it go and let
Mhm.
it fall
Mhm.
because that's where I can rebuild from. I love that you said it wasn't learning something new. It's almost unlearning the stuff that had buried it.
Yeah. 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 And that comes back to the pose, right? You are in a posed position for so long, and you've got to actually unlearn the pose to get to your authentic self. Or you've got to do that. And the only way to do that is to, again, stay in that lane as much as possible versus the other lane, which has a dead end.
And I've heard it this way, right? Your behavior becomes your habits.
Sure.
Your habits become your character
Hmm.
and your role. And then that concretizes, that hardens to become an identity.
That's right.
And that's what people find difficulty in shifting, right? Because
Hmm.
it's like when I work with English learners and they have what we call fossil errors.
Mm.
They've made the same error so many times, even though intellectually they know the right way, it still comes with the same error.
Yep.
All right. You said 20 years ago, never could have been a coach because it was the all about me. The
Yep.
ego was running full bore. Today, you work with coaches in the middle of their own transition. When you look at someone who's stuck in that win at all costs, that's just part of the price of the admission,
Yep.
they don't know it yet. What do you see?
Well, imposter syndrome, right? I know that they are in an inauthentic state. So when I say we have a real coach method, that's not an arrogant term. It's an acronym that stands for relevant, experiential, authentic leaders, because we believe everyone should be a real coach. And the neat part is when people step into a coaching lane and they think they need to be in a performance lane, and yet they feel that there's this imposter syndrome, I know they're being inauthentic. Right? I know they're being success focused. I know they're chasing the dollar. Because at the end of the day, we have a whole sequence on how we help coaches build their coaching business. And it all comes down to what we call the payoff. And a mentor and coach of mine, Rory Vaden, who wrote the book Wealthy and Well Known, says that you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person who you used to be. And so when these coaches come in and they're in that state of imposter syndrome, I know they're performing, right? They're performing because they feel that they need to look good and be right. That's ego. Stop, 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 stop. Let's go back. Let's look at the payoff. What are people getting when they work with you? X. Great. Now, where in your life have you solved for X? Oh, I haven't. So why are you coaching it? Don't coach that. You've never done it before. If you came to me and said, Adam, I want you to coach me on how to make $1 billion, and I said, yes, I wouldn't sleep at night because I've never done it before. But if you came to me and said, hey, Adam, I need your help in building a 7-figure coaching business, great, no problem. I can help you that with my eyes closed because I know that's my authentic lane. I know I've been there and done that. But when these coaches come in and they have to go through this, Our phase 1 of our blueprint, we call it going inside to go out. And they've got to go inside first. It's so fascinating to me to watch when people come in and build coaching businesses, and yet they won't even go on social media to change their profile bio that says coach. They won't go do it, right? Or their signature on their email or something along those lines because they're afraid of what someone else will think of them. Get out of here. We got to have a different conversation then.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And I heard this recently. I did some work with someone, massive shifts over a 30-day period. Beautiful testimonial. Asked to be anonymized.
Mm-hmm.
Because I coach people on this stuff. What if they knew that I struggle with it?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It, as you said, it's the ego. It's the I have to put on the game face
Mm-hmm.
and show that my life is perfect.
That's
And
right.
that's where the high cortisol, the stress,
Yep.
the sleepless nights, the burnout
Yep. Well,
is
here's what we know
when
too.
we're not being authentic.
You can't build from that state. If your cortisol level, if your stress level, if your whatever burnout level is so high, your creativity becomes zero or
It's
non-existent.
in the
It goes down.
basement.
It's
Yeah.
gone. Yeah, it's in the basement. So if you aren't feeling a sense of creativeness, you need to check that. Right? I've got a white wall here, a whiteboard in my office. I got a bunch out here in what we call the war room. And that's because I need spaces to dump what's up here. And if I don't dump stuff up there, then I get what's called mental constipation, right? But at the same time, I know that is a good space to be when I have to dump. That means I'm not stressed. That means that my cortisol level is low. That means that my creativeness is high, which means I'm in an ideal state of authenticness. That's how I measure it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, I have my personal wiki. Like it's this collection of, like you said, dumping thoughts. When a thought
Mm-hmm.
comes, get it
Yeah.
recorded somewhere,
Yep.
get it out so the space is available, as you said, for creativity, for
That's right.
problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
So the people listening to this
Mm-hmm.
are leaders who by all external measures, they're successful.
Yeah.
They hit the goals, they built something, they've got the trophies. My last guest had a 7-foot wall of trophies
Wow.
and stood in front of it and said, what's the point?
Yep.
What's the point? Like,
Sure.
and like you said, these people are sitting there with a success, whatever, but inside they're feeling that off, right?
Yep. Yep.
That the old version of success, it's not enough,
Yep.
but they don't yet have the name for it.
Yeah.
You've been inside that. So tell us what you know.
We got to identify it all first, right? And that is your 4 stages. Identifying the container that you're in, stage 1. Stage 2 is identifying your uncertainty, right? You're feeling it right now, but you've got to lean into it. You've got to step into it. You've got to go understand what is causing that uncertainty because most people push it away. Stage 3 is now creating clarity, right? When you have uncertainty, that's there for a reason. You have to go create clarity on what you need to lean into, create clarity on what's causing the uncertainty and lean into, okay, what am I being called to do next? What is that? What am I feeling? What would cause me to step into a more authentic state of myself? And the last one is truly your ownership, right? You've got to take ownership of what's on the other side of that fence. You don't need to jump the fence, but you at least need to know what is there. Because if you don't, that feeling is going to stay. It's going to pick at you. It's going to get to a point where you're like, gosh, do I really want to be a 70-year-old tennis pro in Beverly Hills? No, I didn't, which is why I got out of that. Did I really want to continue to fight with the politics and the red tape and the limited growth potential of serving people in the real estate container? No. But if I didn't lean into finding clarity and writing the white paper, I wrote a white paper on this community back in 2009, and it was actually called a tribe back then. And it was truly, it says on the white paper, to become the coaching tribe known around the world, is what I put. And here we are now. We've served coaches on 4 continents. And it's so amazing. But had I have not gone through those 4 stages of the container, understanding that, of going into an uncertainty, of going to that space of clarity, and then taking ownership of that clarity, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Likewise. Like,
Yep.
yeah, you've got to go through those steps. And often in the midst of it, as we said, you're not feeling, you feel like something's off, but you can't put your finger on it yet.
That's right. That's right.
But standing where we are today and looking back, you can go, oh, bam, that was there for this. Bam, that happened because of this. This is what I was supposed to learn.
Yep. Very true.
All right. Any closing words, Adam, before we wrap up the recording?
This has been incredible. You've been an incredible facilitator of questions. This has been a lot of fun. Any closing words? Trust the process. It's okay. You know, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would instantly go develop a board of advisors for myself, right? Instead of staying in that space of self-reliance, I would find my board of advisors from all over, right? And trust that I could share that feeling of uncertainty. I have this feeling of uncertainty. How do I get out of it? Right? What should I do? I'm feeling something. Share it with that board of advisors and then sit back and sit on your hands and just listen for feedback, right? And secondly, if you're feeling that you are being called into a coaching space, great, come check me out. I love coachingco.com/ get paid to coach, right? We have a guide that just teaches you how to take your experience and turn it into a coaching business or a business that you're not an amateur in, right? You're already answering questions for people. Why not get paid for it? And that's what we help people do.
And not just get paid, but make that impact.
That's right. Serve and get paid and have that impact. That's right.
I don't remember who said it. You might know, but I heard it. Like the money, the success you see, real success, not that performance success we talked about, it shows you the impact. When it's real, you make more impact, and we'll say
Success.
your wealth
Mhm.
grows.
That's
And
right.
when I say wealth, I don't mean fancy cars or money or
Mhm.
big houses, but true wealth.
Yep. Agree. Totally does. And that's what John has taught me, that focusing on significance will increase your success. So here we are today. And I loved being
Yes.
on this show. Thank you for all that. Yeah. And again, if they want to come talk to me, I would be happy to chat with any of your listeners on anything. Just go find me on Instagram, Adam R. Roach. There's 2 R's there in the middle. And DM me whatever you want to. You'll see me on there. And it's a very lifestyle oriented page. It's not all about coaching. You can go to my YouTube for my coaching. Same thing. It's just YouTube, Adam R. Roach. And that's where the coaching stuff lives.
Very good. Thank you so much for carving the time out. And I know we had a little glitch on the original scheduled date, but you rode through it, and I'm glad we made it here today. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys. See you. Bye.
We spend a lot of time on this show talking about the threshold, the space